Hello, dear listener. I am grateful you are here with me today. Please subscribe so you can stay close for the next story and tell me in the comments which city or country you are listening from. It always touches my heart to see how far these moments reach. Enjoy the listen. The streets of Harlem pulse with life. Even before dawn, the city awakening slowly around crumbling brownstones and flickering streetlights. A young woman steps off the train carrying nothing but a small suitcase and a heart full of determination. Her name is Stephanie Saint Clair, and the world she enters is not kind, it is loud, it is dangerous, it is a place where power is measured in fear and survival is earned, not given. She walks past pushcarts and market stalls, past men shouting over cheap goods, past children chasing each other with bare feet. Her eyes take in every detail, every shadow, every movement of strangers. She is small in stature, but her mind is already calculating every step. Every alley, every opportunity. She knows that to survive here, she cannot rely on kindness. She cannot rely on mercy. She can rely only on herself. The first nights are the hardest, the sounds of the city slicing through the thin walls of the boarding house. She rents small coins exchanged for worn sheets, the smell of cooking fires mixing with the scent of coal smoke and sweat. She curls on the narrow bed, clutching her suitcase like a shield, listening to the night and learning the rhythm of her new life. She finds work where she can, small odd jobs, carrying messages, washing dishes, helping shopkeepers, the kind of work that keeps her eyes open and her mind sharp. She observes the men around her, the women around her, the networks that flow unseen through Harlem, the quiet power held by those who know how to manipulate information, how to earn loyalty, how to intimidate without being noticed. And she listens, she learns the language of the streets, of survival, of ambition, of secrecy. She notes who pays, who collects, who fears, who is respected, who is whispered about in alleys and back rooms. She knows that one day she will need to speak this language fluently, not just to survive, but to rise. Her first contact in the numbers business comes unexpectedly. A woman known as Madame Lala approaches her quietly in the dim glow of a street lamp, offering her a chance to carry messages to the players at the edges of Harlem's gambling circles. Small packages of information, small sums of money, small tests of loyalty and intelligence. Stephanie accepts because she knows every opportunity is a seed, and every seed can grow into a tree strong enough to shade a neighborhood. She begins running errands for Madame Lala, carefully observing every instruction, every warning, every nuance. She notices how trust is earned, not given, how fear and respect are intertwined, how a slip of the tongue, a moment of hesitation, a glance in the wrong direction can cost someone everything. She internalizes these lessons not as fear, but as armor. At night, she sits by the window, watching the city pulse below, the fire escapes and street corners alive with whispers of deals and betrayal, of money earned and stolen, of power held tightly and lost suddenly. She feels a thrill unlike any other. She senses the possibilities ahead. She senses the gaps. She can exploit the weaknesses. She can convert into strength the empire she can one day build. Her reputation grows slowly. She proves herself dependable, trustworthy, clever, and fearless. Small men and women begin to take note of the young woman who never hesitates, who never errs, who moves with quiet authority and discretion. She is not flashy. She does not boast. She does not demand attention. She simply earns it silently, with results, with precision, with inevitability. But Harlem is not kind to women who rise. It is not gentle to those who show ambition. It is a place of constant threats, from law enforcement, from rival gangs, from corrupt officials, from jealous allies. She begins to realize that survival alone is not enough. She must become invisible yet omnipresent. She must become a force respected and feared without ever appearing to dominate. She learns to read faces, to anticipate actions, to calculate outcomes, to plant seeds of information, to manipulate events, to protect herself without drawing attention to her growing power. She studies the men who believe they are in charge. She notes their weaknesses, their arrogance, their blind spots, and begins to quietly carve her own position alongside them without ever seeming threatening. One evening, a man approaches her in a dim corner of a bustling market. He is known for being ruthless in the numbers trade. His reputation precedes him, and yet he regards Stephanie with something like cautious curiosity. He offers her a chance to run a larger operation under his supervision, a test not just of loyalty, but of intelligence, cunning, and nerve. She accepts without hesitation because she understands that every risk is also an opportunity, every danger is also a ladder. She steps into the role carefully balancing discretion and ambition, her calculations, precise her movements, careful her mind, constantly observing, measuring, predicting, and adapting the city itself a map. She memorizes every alley, every shortcut, every potential threat, every opportunity for advantage. She becomes indispensable not through brute force, but through intelligent strategy and a quiet, unshakable presence. Stephanie St. Clair begins to rise in Harlem. The numbers game under her influence begins to expand. Her network extends into neighborhoods and boroughs that others overlook. She becomes a figure whose name is whispered with respect and caution, who is both admired and feared. Her empire is still small in comparison to men who have held power for decades, but it is growing, and every day it grows stronger. She moves through Harlem like a shadow that knows every crack in the sidewalks, every hidden doorway, every whisper of danger. She is careful yet bold, calculating yet fearless. She begins to take control of small operations, running numbers collections, quietly expanding her influence. Without drawing unnecessary attention to herself, she learns which men can be persuaded, which men can be intimidated, which men can be outmaneuvered, and she applies each lesson with precision. Her first rivals underestimate her. They laugh at the young woman stepping into a world dominated by men. They see her as a novelty, a distraction, someone who will either fail or be absorbed and forgotten. But Stephanie observes them closely, noting every weakness, every prideful misstep, every blind spot. She does not rush, she does not confront directly. She studies, she plans, she waits, and when the time comes, she strikes not with violence first, but with influence, control, and information. She builds a network of trusted couriers and collectors, people who owe her loyalty not because of fear alone, but because they recognize her intelligence, her fairness, her ability to foresee danger and opportunity in equal measure. She is patient, methodical, her empire growing like a tree whose roots spread deep before the first branches are visible above ground. Law enforcement takes notice, slowly their investigations threading through the streets, but Stephanie is careful. She protects her operation, meticulously knowing that secrecy is her greatest weapon. She pays off those who must be paid. She manipulates rumors. She redirects attention, her mind always anticipating the next move, the next threat, the next opportunity. She becomes untouchable not because she is violent, but because she is invisible until she chooses to reveal herself. Her reputation spreads through whispers and quiet admiration, a woman who commands respect without raising her voice, who manipulates outcomes without being seen, who can orchestrate complex operations with a calm intelligence that unnerves even seasoned men in the numbers business. She is no longer just surviving, she is thriving. She is becoming indispensable in a city that has never welcomed a woman of power. Conflict arises inevitably. The white mob and corrupt police see her as a threat, someone who interferes with their profits, someone who cannot be controlled. They attempt to intimidate her with threats, with bribes, with violence. But Stephanie is always ready. She anticipates their moves. She leverages her information networks. She exposes corruption quietly but effectively. She eliminates threats without unnecessary spectacle, ensuring that every action strengthens her position and her reputation. One night, a group of enforcers arrives at her office expecting to intimidate and demand obedience. They find instead a woman, calm, composed, unshaken by their presence. She greets them with polite but firm words, her eyes steady and calculating every move she has rehearsed. The moment they step inside, she redirects their aggression into compliance. Without ever raising her voice, without ever needing to threaten directly, she demonstrates that intelligence and strategy can be more powerful than guns or numbers. Her control of the Harlem numbers game solidifies. She expands into new neighborhoods, hiring trusted allies to run operations she cannot oversee personally, her influence growing quietly, her methods meticulous and fair enough that those who work for her remain loyal and efficient. She builds a system that allows her to control far more than she could ever oversee alone. Stephanie St. Clair becomes a legend in Harlem, a figure whose name is feared and respected across races and social classes, a woman who outmaneuvers both the criminal elements and corrupt officials. She balances power with intelligence and patience, ensuring that her empire not only survives, but thrives despite the constant threats surrounding it. Even as enemies plot against her, even as rivals scheme and law enforcement investigates, she remains calm and calculating, each action designed to reinforce her control, each move carefully considered, each threat neutralized. Before it can become dangerous, she embodies the quiet power of strategy, the unstoppable force of intelligence, tempered with patience. Her rise is not flashy, it is not loud, it is not violent for spectacle, it is methodical, precise, inevitable. She transforms from a young woman learning the streets into a queen of the numbers game, a strategist who commands loyalty and respect through her brilliance and foresight alone. The city shifts around her like a living organism. Stephanie St. Clair moves through it with the certainty of someone who knows its hidden rhythms. Every alley, every stoop, every whisper of opportunity flows into her awareness. She begins to challenge not just small-time operators, but the entrenched mobsters who control Harlem's vice with iron fists, their dominance unquestioned, until she begins to quietly dismantle it. She organizes her own network with meticulous care, trusted lieutenants carrying messages, coordinating collections, monitoring rivals' movements. She never underestimates anyone. Every man, every woman in her world becomes a piece of the puzzle to be placed and rearranged as needed. She exerts influence without drawing attention, always calculating the consequences of every action before it unfolds. The Italian mob sees her as an anomaly, a woman operating in their territory with boldness yet subtlety. They send enforcers to test her, to intimidate her, to see if her reputation is deserved. She greets them with calm composure, observing their body language, their timing, their confidence and weaknesses. She manipulates the encounter with quiet authority, turning aggression into cooperation, without firing a gun, without raising her voice. Corrupt police officers attempt to extract bribes to gain advantage, to claim control. She anticipates their moves, she distributes intelligence, she plays their rivalries against them. She ensures that every attempt to undermine her operation backfires quietly. Without spectacle, without failure, each confrontation strengthens her empire and solidifies her reputation as untouchable. Stephanie begins to expand into neighboring districts, coordinating with allies to create an intricate network of numbers operations. She ensures that payments are collected efficiently, disputes settled swiftly, and loyalty maintained through respect and calculated intimidation. She becomes known as the numbers queen, a strategist whose brilliance is unmatched, whose foresight is precise, whose presence alone commands attention. Even rivals within her own circles learn quickly that betrayal carries consequences. She cultivates loyalty through fairness tempered by fear, every misstep, every disloyalty punished with strategic precision, eliminating threats before they materialize. She understands that power is not maintained by brute force alone, but by the perception of inevitability, the belief that to oppose her is to court disaster. The Harlem community begins to notice her influence, her operations discreet yet pervasive. She invests in local businesses, supporting neighbors, protecting her own. She builds a web where her authority is subtle yet absolute, shaping the cityscape without drawing unnecessary attention to herself. Her empire thrives not in the streets, but in the minds and loyalties of those around her. Attempts to intimidate her grow bolder, attempts to undermine her more desperate, yet she remains a step ahead, observing patterns, predicting moves, exploiting weakness. She moves like water flowing through obstacles, invisible, unstoppable, inevitable. She shapes events before they happen and controls outcomes without need for open conflict. Stephanie's personal life intertwines with her empire, yet she maintains boundaries, carefully separating trust from necessity, separating allies from confidence, separating love from power. She loves strategically, choosing moments and people wisely, because vulnerability can be exploited in a world that rewards cunning and punishes naivety. Even as law enforcement scrutinizes her operations, she adapts her methods, rerouting collections, shifting alliances, manipulating evidence, ensuring that her network continues uninterrupted. She becomes a master of misdirection, using intelligence and strategy to neutralize threats before they emerge, transforming challenges into opportunities. Her reputation spreads beyond Harlem, whispered among both criminal and law-abiding circles alike. Stephanie St. Clair is no longer merely a participant in the numbers game. She is its master, a queen whose intelligence outmatches men twice her size, whose foresight keeps her steps ahead, whose presence ensures respect even from those who would oppose her. She walks through the streets of Harlem with calm authority, the city unfolding beneath her like a map. She has memorized every corner, every shadow, every secret. She moves as a strategist, controlling the flow of power, unseen yet undeniable. Her empire no longer just a dream, but a living organism thriving under her meticulous command. The city never sleeps, and neither does Stephanie St. Clair. Her empire, a network of silent intelligence and calculated control. She moves through Harlem, observing every shift, every pattern, every potential threat. She knows that power is never permanent, that dominance must be maintained, that reputation must be reinforced every day, every decision, every interaction. Law enforcement begins to close in their investigations, threading through the numbers, operations, tracing connections, trying to untangle the web she has meticulously built, yet Stephanie anticipates their moves. She disperses information strategically. She manipulates informants. She leverages rivalries between officers. She creates confusion without confrontation. She remains untouchable, not by force, but by foresight. She begins negotiating with political figures, quietly offering protection, alliances, and subtle influence in return for oversight. Turned blind eye, her reach extends beyond the streets. She shapes policy, indirectly shaping the environment in which her empire thrives. Her understanding of power extends beyond money, beyond fear, into the realm of influence, control, perception. Rival factions attempt to challenge her dominance, attempting to intercept collections, intercept messages, intimidate allies, disrupt operations. But Stephanie is always prepared. Her intelligence network allows her to predict threats. Her loyal lieutenants neutralize issues before they escalate. She ensures that any challenge to her authority is met with quiet, precise response, leaving no trace of her hand, yet sending unmistakable messages of power and inevitability. Her strategic brilliance becomes legend even among seasoned criminals who have never seen such control in a woman so young. Her ability to manipulate complex networks, balance loyalty and fear, ensure collections, and maintain secrecy is unparalleled. She is feared because she is clever. She is respected because she is fair. She is untouchable because she anticipates every move before it is made. Stephanie's personal discipline reinforces her empire. She maintains strict routines. She observes her people. She monitors movements. She assesses risks. She studies patterns and calculates outcomes. She does not overreach. She does not react impulsively. She allows others to make mistakes while she adapts and capitalizes on every opportunity. As she consolidates power, her name becomes synonymous with the numbers game. She is the arbiter of disputes, the protector of allies, the punisher of betrayers. She achieves a balance that few can comprehend, maintaining loyalty without oppression, control without violence, perception without display. She is the numbers queen. Attempts by law enforcement to arrest her are complicated by her meticulous planning. She ensures layers of protection. She uses proxies. She leverages the community's respect and dependence on her operations to shield herself. She manipulates narratives, ensuring that when actions are taken against her, they appear minimal, ineffective, or misdirected. She survives every investigation, expanding influence even as scrutiny grows. Enemies who thought her rise would be temporary are forced to acknowledge her brilliance. They respect her cunning, her patience, her intelligence, her ability to orchestrate outcomes without exposing herself. She becomes untouchable in a way that is quiet, almost invisible, yet undeniable. Her reputation becomes her armor, her strategy, her sword, her empire. The Harlem community itself benefits quietly from her rule. She supports businesses, protects vulnerable residents, ensures stability in ways the mob and corrupt officials never could. She becomes a figure of subtle power, a force that shapes the neighborhood from the shadows. Her authority unquestioned because she is necessary, intelligent, and inevitable. Even in moments of solitude, she reflects on her path, the lessons of survival, the calculated risks, the victories, both quiet and public. She understands that her life is a balance of intelligence, cunning, patience, and relentless discipline. She has become what the world rarely allows women to be: a strategist, a ruler, a queen, commanding fear, respect, and loyalty in equal measure. Her empire thrives. She continues to outmaneuver threats, to manipulate outcomes, to consolidate her power. She is aware of every potential disruption, every opportunity for expansion, every mistake of her rivals. She moves silently yet decisively, shaping her world to her advantage. Stephanie St. Clair has become more than a woman running numbers. She has become a legend, a queen, of force of intellect and strategy, whose story will echo through Harlem and beyond, whose influence cannot be measured by money alone, but by the intelligence, control, and inevitability she exerts. Stephanie St. Clair moves through Harlem like a force of nature, her presence quiet but undeniable, every move calculated, every glance measured, every decision designed to maintain control and expand influence. She knows that power is a delicate balance, and she treats it as an art form, not a weapon. Rival factions begin to realize that challenging her directly is futile. Her intelligence network alerts her to every attempt at sabotage, every hidden plan, every whispered plot. She strikes before threats materialize using subtle manipulation, legal pressure, community influence, and strategic alliances. She dismantles challenges without spectacle, without unnecessary violence, leaving her rivals frustrated and exposed. Her personal life is entwined with the empire, but carefully compartmentalized. She chooses allies wisely, lovers sparingly, trusting selectively. She understands that vulnerability can be exploited, and she cannot afford weakness. Every relationship is weighed against the cost of potential betrayal and the benefit of loyalty. She maintains control through foresight and psychological acuity. Stephanie's operations continue to expand beyond Harlem into neighboring boroughs, using trusted lieutenants to run complex networks, collections, distribution, and enforcement. She ensures loyalty through respect, calculated fear, and incentive. She monitors outcomes with meticulous care, making adjustments before minor issues escalate into threats. She is everywhere without being seen, a strategist and queen whose empire flows like water, adapting to every curve, every obstacle, every challenge. Law enforcement continues to investigate, yet she manipulates outcomes subtly, ensuring they are misled or delayed. She bribes where necessary, influences where possible, and redirects attention to protect herself and her network. She uses her understanding of human behavior to anticipate actions, predicting moves of agents, informants, and rival gang leaders with precision. Her foresight keeps her always one step ahead. When rival mobs attempt coordinated attacks, she counters not with brute force, but with intelligent strategy and psychological manipulation. She uses their overconfidence against them, turning their moves into their undoing. She leverages community knowledge, strategic misinformation, and loyal operatives to neutralize threats quietly, efficiently, and permanently. Her reputation becomes legendary, her name whispered across Harlem with a mixture of fear and respect. She is the numbers queen, the strategist whose brilliance is unmatched, the woman whose foresight protects her empire and punishes betrayal. She maintains a balance of influence and control, ensuring her network thrives and her authority is unquestioned. She mentors her trusted lieutenants, teaching them the art of strategy, observation, and discretion, ensuring her legacy will continue even if she ever steps back from operations. She invests in businesses, community programs, and alliances, creating stability and ensuring that her influence touches not only the criminal network, but the wider neighborhood. Even in moments of solitude, Stephanie reflects on the path she has walked, from the young woman arriving in Harlem to the queen who controls her empire with intelligence and strategy. She feels no arrogance, only clarity, understanding that every choice, every risk, every calculated move has built her power and cemented her legacy. Her empire is not just money or fear, it is intelligence, influence, foresight, control, and inevitability. She has outmaneuvered rivals, manipulated law enforcement, and commanded respect in a world that rarely allows women to rise. She has done it with quiet brilliance, with patience, and with absolute discipline. Stephanie St. Clair has become immortalized in the streets. She walks in a city that has learned to fear her, respect her, and depend on her. Her legend is quiet, but pervasive, her empire invisible yet unstoppable. She is not just a numbers queen, she is the architect of her world, a strategist, a ruler, and a force whose influence will endure far beyond her lifetime. Stephanie St. Clair surveys Harlem like a queen, observing her kingdom, every street corner, every stoop, every whispering alley, a map in her mind, every movement, a calculated piece of the puzzle. Her rivals now diminished or cautious, her empire uncontested yet constantly adapting. She knows that power must be maintained even when it seems secure. The remaining rival factions grow weaker as she consolidates control. Their leaders intimidated, their operations infiltrated, their alliances quietly undone. Before they realize what has happened, she uses strategy, not brute force, exploiting overconfidence, greed, and underestimation to remove obstacles one by one without drawing unnecessary attention to herself. Stephanie invests in her community, using subtle influence to protect residents, businesses, and allies. She understands that stability and loyalty go hand in hand. She ensures that her network is indispensable not just through fear, but through necessity, through benefits that cannot be ignored. Her empire becomes an integral part of the social and economic fabric of Harlem. She continues to manipulate law enforcement to her advantage using informants, carefully managed corruption, and misdirection to ensure investigations fail or yield minimal results. She anticipates scrutiny and adapts before pressure becomes threat. She remains untouchable because her foresight turns potential disasters into opportunities. Her personal discipline remains absolute, her routines unbroken, her mind constantly observing, predicting, calculating. She trains her lieutenants in the art of strategy, teaching them observation, patience, discretion, and manipulation, ensuring the continuation of her legacy. Her empire runs efficiently, her influence expanding while her presence remains a quiet but constant force. Enemies who once mocked her now whisper her name in fear and respect. Those who seek to challenge her are met with invisible barriers, strategic setbacks, and carefully orchestrated consequences. Her reputation alone controls behavior, shaping the actions of rivals, allies, and law enforcement alike without her having to act overtly. As her dominance solidifies, Stephanie reflects on the journey from the young immigrant woman navigating Harlem's streets to the queen who now commands the city's numbers network with unmatched intelligence and strategy. She recognizes the sacrifices, the risks, the relentless calculation that has led to this moment. She feels not pride, but clarity, knowing her life has become an instrument of control and influence. The final consolidation of power is marked not by violence, but by efficiency. Her empire streamlined, her allies loyal, her rivals neutralized, her network unstoppable. She moves through Harlem observing quietly, ensuring that every piece is aligned, every contingency accounted for, every outcome anticipated. Her control complete, her dominance invisible yet absolute. Even in private moments, she contemplates legacy, the permanence of influence, the weight of strategy, the inevitability of her position. She knows her power is not fleeting because it is built on foresight, intelligence, and careful orchestration. Her story becomes legend because she achieved what few ever imagined possible. Stephanie St. Clair has transformed Harlem into a city she silently governs, a network she controls, and a community that respects and fears her in equal measure. She is not only the numbers queen, she is the architect of her domain, a strategist whose brilliance is unmatched, a force whose influence will endure long after the streets forget the names of men who underestimated her. Her empire is complete, her dominance uncontested, her legacy secured through intelligence, strategy, and inevitable control. She has reshaped Harlem not by force, but by foresight, not by violence, but by precision, not by spectacle, but by the quiet inevitability of a woman who refused to be small. The city breathes around her a rhythm. She has memorized every alleyway, every stoop, every hidden path, every whisper of opportunity flows through her awareness. She moves silently yet with absolute authority, her presence felt even when unseen, her empire a living organism thriving under her guidance. Stephanie St. Clair reflects on the girl who arrived in Harlem years ago carrying nothing but determination and a suitcase. She recalls the fear, the uncertainty, the endless nights navigating streets filled with danger. She remembers the lessons learned from every misstep, every betrayal, every risk, and she realizes that those moments forged her into the strategist she has become. Her influence touches the streets, the businesses, the neighborhoods, the people who rely on her and fear her in equal measure. She has built an empire not only on numbers, but on intelligence, observation, foresight, and control. She has mastered the art of seeing possibilities before they exist and shaping outcomes before anyone else can act. Enemies who once threatened her now exist only as lessons, their arrogance and underestimation having paved the way for her dominance. She does not celebrate their failures, she simply recognizes inevitability, recognizing that her careful planning, her patience, her intelligence ensured that she would rise while others stumbled. Even in moments of solitude, she contemplates power, the delicate balance of influence and loyalty, the necessity of patience, the importance of observation. She understands that true strength lies not in brute force, but in anticipation and manipulation, in strategy, in controlling perception and outcomes without unnecessary exposure. Her lieutenants continue to operate her empire efficiently, loyal because of respect and understanding of her brilliance. She mentors them subtly, ensuring the continuation of her methods and the endurance of her influence. She shapes the next generation, quietly making certain that the legacy of intelligence, foresight, and authority endures beyond her personal presence. Harlem itself has become a reflection of her control, organized, stable, efficient. Resilient, her influence pervasive yet invisible, she has transformed the environment through strategic choices, calculated alliances, careful management, and quiet enforcement. She is both ruler and guardian, a force shaping the neighborhood's fate without ever stepping into the spotlight. Stephanie's story becomes legend, whispered in alleyways, marketplaces, among law enforcement, and by rivals. She is a name spoken with respect and caution, a symbol of intelligence and inevitability. Her rise demonstrates that a woman, through discipline, foresight, and strategy, can surpass expectations, challenge entrenched power, and create an empire in a world designed to limit her. She recognizes the delicate balance of legacy, the permanence of influence, the inevitability of power. She understands that her life's work is not measured by violence or wealth alone, but by the intelligence, foresight, and control she has exercised to shape events, manipulate outcomes, and secure authority. As the sun sets over Harlem, Stephanie walks silently along streets that pulse with the life she has quietly shaped, a presence felt, influence exerted, power unquestioned. She embodies the inevitability of strategy, the precision of intelligence, and the enduring force of a woman who refused to be small. Stephanie St. Clair has become immortalized not only as the numbers queen, but as a strategist, a ruler, a legend. Her empire sustained by intelligence, her dominance ensured by foresight. Her story remembered for the brilliance of a woman whose influence will endure long after names are forgotten and time moves on. Her empire is secure, her rivals diminished, her influence pervasive, and her legacy assured. She has reshaped Harlem not through spectacle, but through careful orchestration, through strategy, through intelligence, through the quiet inevitability of her presence. She is Stephanie St. Clair, the numbers queen, the strategist, the architect, the force whose legend endures beyond her lifetime, a testament to foresight, intelligence, and the power of a woman who refused to yield.